There we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's Coaches Power Session. I'm Jaimie Skultety. I'm a visibility strategist for coaches and conscious entrepreneurs, and I'm here with my co-host, Mark Kanty. He's a seasoned business coach who helps heart-centered experts turn their wisdom into growth. And today, our guest is Gayle Nowak. Gayle helps spirit-led coaches and healers reclaim their voice and build authentic, healthy business relationships. And today, we're diving into a powerful conversation, storytelling with soul, turning vulnerability into visibility. I love that. So if you've ever struggled with how much of your story to share or how to show up authentically without feeling exposed, this one's for you. So welcome, Gayle. Welcome in, Mark.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey,
Thank
everyone. I
you.
literally just blasted in. So from Calgary, got my coffee in hand. It's 9 a.m. here.
Awesome. So I've just got a few kind of questions to kind of frame up our conversation, but we want to also not be like so scripted, and we want to just be like very natural. So, but I also don't want to just throw Gayle out there and go, okay, now talk. So I've got a couple of questions that we can kind of frame up our conversation a little bit. My first one, Gayle, is why do you think so many soul-led coaches feel unsafe being visible?
That's such a great question. And, I think that especially for soul-led coaches, we care so deeply, right? And it is personal for us. Business is personal. We care about the relationships that we create. We care about just the world, right? And so there's this push and pull sometimes around if I share this part of myself, or if I share all of me, will I be accepted or will I be rejected, right? That human desire to belong is so strong. And in my work, there's often an added element. It's not always true, but it's very often true that a lot of the clients that I work with actually have backgrounds where being visible wasn't necessarily safe. And so there's some healing that needs to be done around that part of them that doesn't feel safe being visible. And I know that was certainly true for me. When I was a child, I grew up kind of in a challenging environment. When I was 9 years old, I made a vow of silence after experiencing abuse, and I didn't feel safe enough to speak up about that for a long time. And I decided for several years that, hey, you know what, it's maybe safer for me to hide my truth and not be visible in order to protect myself. And then when I finally did break that silence, it was met with silence. All the things that I was afraid would happen actually didn't happen. And in fact, nothing happened. So I was really kind of left on my own to navigate that until I was old enough to leave. And so that left an impression, right? It really made an impact on how I was showing up to life, whether it was career, whether it was my business, whether it was in relationships. And it really wasn't until decades later that I realized how much that invisibility and that silence was showing up, and how much it was really impacting me. And so, of course, naturally, I was attracting a lot of clients who had maybe not exactly the same experience, but similar experiences where there was this yearning and this desire to be visible, to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. God, I'll even go there, to be chosen, right? Sure. And yet this deep-seated fear about, is that even safe? Yeah. Is that even safe for me? Yeah. Right? And of course, I work with a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs and holistic practitioners. And, whether or not you believe in past lives or what have you, like many of us do believe that our soul comes in with remnants and ancestral DNA. And look, let's face it, our world has a history of persecuting people for speaking up and speaking the truth and being seen in that truth, right? So there are those elements as well.
Powerful stuff,
Yeah.
Gayle, and so much. And the word fear, when you bring that up, it's interesting. I was reading this morning, my morning read was, I was reading some of Frederick Dodson's work, and he was talking about freeze, flight, or fight. And of course, when we go into fear, the primitive brain kicks in, and how often, if you don't feel safe, the first reaction is typically freeze, right? Most animals freeze first, and then some freeze for a long time. And some of it's quite funny. You probably see those videos of the goats that, and they fall over.
Yeah.
Or deers, deer, it's just amazing.
We're in the headlights. Yep.
Yeah, their default is just freeze, freeze, freeze. But yeah, that freeze, fight, or flight, but that instinct to go into freeze mode and then often stay stuck there.
Right.
Yeah. And that's that invisibility, isn't it? Is if I stay frozen, then T-Rex won't see me and I'll be safe.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So that's a powerful observation. And of course, maturing, as you say, and that's what Dodson talks about, is rising to higher levels of consciousness, realizing that in today's world, there aren't saber-toothed tigers and T-Rexes out there. So we've got to realize that primitive brain is telling us that, and it's not real.
Yeah. I really appreciate you bringing up that point, because it can be very easy to go into the space of beating ourselves up for how we respond, and yet that primitive, like, it serves a purpose, right? That's a nervous system response. It's meant to protect you, to save you. A lot of the strategies that we just sort of come up with, whether it's in childhood or even in our older years, are brilliant. They're brilliant strategies.
Sure.
And you really hit the nail on the head, Mark, when you said we stay stuck there. That's the opportunity for change and growth, is to recognize, oh, actually, I'm not in that situation.
Yes.
Anymore. I don't need this strategy anymore.
Yes. Yeah. And that's so powerful too, is it's not what you just said there too. It's not the fear. It's not the reaction to the fear. It's the denial of that keeps you stuck. But when you accept it, when you go, wait a minute, I'm frozen. Why am I frozen? Because I'm actually looking at this as a death, a near, a life or death situation. And no, just because I didn't get cream in my coffee doesn't mean I'm going to die. Hold on a sec. So becoming aware and observing that is what allows us to transcend, if you will, and move to problem solving and use our brains and move into a different space of consciousness to actually make it happen. Yeah.
And also,
like Einstein was credited with saying, and I don't know, as always, most of these quotes aren't exactly accurate, but he said something to the effect of, no problem can be solved at the same level of consciousness that created it. So the idea that if I'm in a state of consciousness where I think there's a saber-toothed tiger or a T-Rex and I'm frozen as a result, and I stay in that state of consciousness, I will never be able to solve the problem. So I have to move to a different state to make it happen. And I know that's, a lot of the work that you do. We're by the way, we're not even on storytelling yet. We need to get onto the power of story, the power of myth, that is one of those pathways, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking your truth.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, taking that vulnerability to say, okay, especially as business coaches, right? We want to come across like we've just got it all together and we have every answer in the world. But in reality, we all have a story to tell, and we all have a background, and we all have a history. Like, it wasn't always success, right? So we have to be honest about that. And if we get real with our storytelling in whatever, however that exposes itself, and to be vulnerable in that and be able to share that. When I first started my business, I remember my stepdad saying, don't tell anybody about that your last job, was actually working for him and my mom, and they had to close their business. So I lost my job. And he's like, don't tell anybody that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, but I feel like that's part of my story and that's okay. And for a long time, I held that because it stuck with me that he said that, like, it could hurt you. And actually, when I really got because I'm a very open book, I share anybody wants to know anything about me, I tell you. And so when I finally was opening up about that, people related to me more. And I found that to be an actual business strategy, if you will, but more so of just, letting that vulnerability show itself and let the chips fall where they may, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And that comes up a lot. That comes up a lot with your story because often it involves other people.
Yeah.
And those voices are part of the process of, will I tell this story?
Mm-hmm.
Who am I going to tell it to? How am I going to tell it? Right.
Yeah.
And, I've just been in conversation around how to tell the truth without burning bridges. And the reality is that's your story to tell. That's your perspective. But there were some decisions that needed to happen. You had a family member who specifically said, please don't share this. Right. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we have that. And sometimes we anticipate that, right? We don't want to hurt other people who are part of our story. So how do we navigate that?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm glad to hear, Jaimie, that you did navigate that. And, knowing who you are, I know that you did it with love and respect. And, you mentioned being an open book, right? And sometimes we can kind of go into oversharing. Like sometimes we might think that there's, what is that phrase? There's some, I don't know who the person is. And I think it was an author, but they said, be willing to kill your darlings. Right. And so we may have pieces of our story that we're really attached to, but in fact aren't relevant to maybe our audience or our clients or, whoever that message is for. Right. Mm-hmm. And so this can get really deep, right? Yeah. It's not only, yes, it's using your story, sharing your story as a strategy to connect with people, to build rapport, to build trust. And there's a lot of internal decisions, mm-hmm. and maybe even internal belief systems and inner dialogue that needs to be addressed before rushing into sharing that story.
Yeah.
You're so right.
I think what you said, Jaimie, too, I love like the, storytelling with soul and that idea of, and you said it, Gayle, you asked the question, how do you do that without, bringing somebody else into it or harming someone else? And then I think the word that came up though, that you brought in, Jaimie, that was so powerful is that idea of vulnerability. Mm-hmm. So as soon as we shift the focus to ourselves, meaning not in a selfish way, but here's what I'm feeling, here's how it affected me, here's how it impacted me. Now, even like your dad hearing that story would hear it from a different perspective. So it's stepping, and again, this is consciousness too, right? Stepping into a different level of consciousness instead of it being the blame game, because you could very easily tell a story this is why this happened to me because of this person in this situation and, and politics and the interest rate and everything else. And it's all external. So that could be your story. But is that really your story? No, it's the story you're projecting onto the world and thinking that you're a victim, if you will, versus coming from a personal space, being vulnerable enough to say, this is what it did for me, to me, with me, how it impacted me.
Yeah, it makes you so much more relatable too. It's
sure.
You're kind of putting yourself a person speaking with their level and kind of having that empathetic ear, and also just your story to be able to relate so that they don't feel so alone. You know, everybody has a story. So
yeah. And if we, the other word that comes to mind is if we're talking about it from that perspective of blame, if you will, it's like gossip, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So if you think of the word gossip and you feel, and you can feel gossip, instantly, when you slip over the line from self-disclosure to gossip. It's almost I don't know, maybe it's a primitive brain thing, but it really does. You can feel it viscerally when you slip into that. So, and I think that's a good, back to your question, Gayle, how do you do that? Well, you check yourself. You go, am I gossiping or am I sharing my truth? And if you're storytelling your truth, then you'll never slip into gossip, because it's what you're experiencing and how it's impacting you, and you're not projecting that on anyone. It's your deal, if you will.
Right.
It brings to mind too the model. I know we've talked about it in the work that we've done together, all of us, but the Johari window. And that, if nobody's heard of it, the Johari window is a wonderful communications model that was created by a couple of psychologists out of Harvard, and it's a metaphor using panes of glass in a window. And the one pane in particular, the first pane that it comes to mind, is called self-disclosure. And the more we self-disclose, the more we share what's going on with us, then the more it opens up the window, and the more it opens up a piece of us and allows us to connect with others. But the more we tighten it down, so you think about the scripted, the professional, buttoned up, and everything's on the teleprompter, and God forbid, a hair was out of place. Well, then the window is really tiny and it's closed. So you come away with a yucky feeling like, is this person here to entertain me? They're certainly not here to connect with me. So that idea. So those of you who are watching, if you're not familiar with the Johari window, it's Johari, Johari window.
Yeah.
Very
cool. So Gayle, and I like this question, so I'm just going to throw this out here. For coaches watching who feel like their story isn't big enough, right? So what kind of advice could we throw out there for those who are like, oh, but my story is like, I'm just whatever,
Yeah. I will definitely answer that, but I just want to touch really quickly on what Mark was saying. And there's a difference between being vulnerable from a place of integration versus from your wounding. That's really what what I really heard in your comment. And that's where I support clients, right? Like that, it's helping them share from the wisdom rather than the wound. And if it's clear that there's still wounding there, like that's the opportunity to heal. And I made that mistake. I had a lot more healing to do around my childhood after I shared my story. And I can look, hindsight's 2020. I can look at it and say, I understand why it went that way, so that I could understand this piece.
Yes.
Of, if you're still feeling that grief or that anger or that sadness, that's not the time to share the story publicly.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the time to share it with yourself, to get clear in your own energy, because people will feel that.
Yeah.
They will feel that, and they will, like you said, it'll feel like gossip, or it'll just simply feel like, wow, this person's just vented.
Yeah.
Not necessarily connected.
Yeah. That idea of I think of a continuum. You have to go through that personal vulnerability of recognizing your wounds and your pain, processing through that in order to get to the other side to be able to talk about it. But if you talk about it and you haven't gone through the process yet, then you're going to be in trouble, and you're going to come across exactly like you said. You're going to come across as somebody alien, like an alien thing. Like, is this person really talking about themselves, or what's going on here?
Right.
Yeah. Powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jaimie, I so relate to, gosh, I relate to this, which, my story is specifically about trauma. Right. And so but it doesn't have to be that kind of story. It does not have to be so dramatic, But even with me, I remember when I first started thinking about doing a business, I remember my sister saying to me, you should start a blog. And I was like, well, what would I talk about? You know?
Yeah.
So sometimes we're just so close to it that we don't think that our experiences have value, which is really, it's really interesting. And I have all kinds of thoughts about, why and why that happens. And I would say, to somebody who's thinking, well, it's not big enough, it's not dramatic enough, it's not sexy enough, to remember, story is about how you changed. It's how you changed. And who were you before whatever experience is coming up for you that you want to share, that is connected to your audience, is connected to your message. How did you, who were you before that? Who are you after that? How did you change through that? And there's value in that. It doesn't have to be something dramatic.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that the journey that the story reveals.
Right.
And let's face it, I mean, storytelling goes back to, again, our primitive brain. I mean, it goes as far back as language goes. So this idea of story that's so powerful, that hits so many layers and levels of consciousness, right through from survival needs right through to spiritual expression, can be captured in a story. And the reason music touches us so, right? Music is so powerful, particularly when they're ballads that tell a story. Then we're getting it at so many different levels. So it's really, really powerful to realize in that word soul that comes out, because it does touch the soul, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. And I think what you said too, Gayle, it reminds me, Rich Schefren was the first one that I heard say this. And I know it was because of some of the readings that he did. And I can't remember the source of it, but it was that which is most personal is also most general. Meaning, when somebody thinks that they're the only one going through it, the reality is everybody's going through it. And that kind of comes back to your question, Jaimie, is that thing like, oh, my story is so small, surely nobody else has a story like this. It's insignificant. Of course, that's messages from society, from teachers, from parents, and other kids taunting us and, beating us down. There's a great book, a children's book called The Nibble Theory. I think Jaimie even picked it up when I recommended it years ago. Yeah. And it's that idea of, the world is nibbling away at us, and it makes us think that our story is insignificant or small. But in fact, that one story that could be a life changer, could save somebody's life, could set somebody on a whole different, trajectory. So just share it and watch what happens.
Yeah. Great. So let me see. Let me ask Gayle if she wants to give a little bit of details about what it is that she does and how she specifically helps people, specifically, coaches, spirit-led coaches, I guess. Give kind of your little elevator pitch or whatever you want to share. And I've got, scrolling across the bottom, everybody, we've got her Soulful Story Starter email course. She can talk a little bit about that as well. And I'm also then going to be putting up another banner about retreats that she does. So Gayle, I'm going to turn it over to you, and then we'll flash those up on the screen at the same time.
Great. Sounds great. So one thing that I want to bring forward is that we're talking a lot about story as strategy, and that is certainly a piece of the work that I do. I also have a background in PR and marketing communications, and I've been in business now for 12 years. So I work with business owners. So business is a piece of this, helping clients share their message, impact their audience, attract clients. That's all a piece of the work that I do. And I think that what makes me different from a lot of other marketing coaches is combining the storytelling with the energetics and the healing piece. As you can tell from the conversation that we're having, like, this is deep work. It's transformational work, and it's often very healing work. So it's more than crafting that compelling message. It's really about feeling safe and aligned when you're speaking it, really just showing up free to be who you are and speaking what's true for you and receiving whatever comes. I think a lot of us are very familiar with over functioning and the hustle and chasing clients. And that's a very different energy than being who you are and allowing in your people.
Yes.
Right? And that's at the heart of my work, is really, not pushing people into exposure, really helping them get clear first about, number one, how you're showing up, the gap between how you're showing up and how you want to show up, and moving you through that process. And that's really at the heart of my work. And story is a piece of that, but the overarching goal here is to really stand in your power as a leader, and have a heart and soul based leader. There's plenty of leaders out there who, are controlling and authoritative, and we don't need to go into that. But really, I think that the future of our world is going to be built on what I call bold and gentle leaders, meaning people who are courageous and who speak truth to power, and yet do that in a way that is respectful, loving, compassionate, and empathetic.
I love it.
So that's sort of the bigger vision of the work that I do.
Yeah. And Lord knows the world needs more of that right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Powerful message and a powerful example of developing the leaders that we need at this moment and for the future to come.
Yeah. And Gayle, I'm putting up also about your upcoming retreat, and I'm across the screen, July 18th to the 20th in New Hampshire. I'm going to let you speak to that a little bit too.
Yeah. So, and I saw you put up the Story Starter email course. So for anybody that's tuning in, if you're a coach or a healer who really feels called to share more of your truth, yet maybe you heard in our conversation, recognized yourself, you're maybe afraid of being too much, too messy, not enough, too vulnerable, right? I invite you to check out my free Soulful Story Starter email course. It can help you get started on sharing those stories that really matter without silencing yourself, hiding yourself, without burning bridges. And you can get that at the link that is scrolling at the bottom of the screen right now. And then if it's time to dive into maybe more deeper work with your message and your healing, I have the Come Home to Your Truth retreat that's coming up July 18th through the 20th in Meredith, New Hampshire. It's a 2.5-day transformational in-person experience for spirit-led coaches and healers and conscious leaders who are ready to reclaim their voice, share their truth, and become visible from the inside out.
Beautiful.
I want to make a comment too about, I was reading an article, I think it was yesterday, and it was quite startling. And it was statistics about AI and how people who are using AI are like at a massive pace, losing their ability to think. And I think, to me, what calls to me is the work that you're doing, Gayle, is the more we look at, we're going to see a lot of this blow up because people are using AI in the wrong way. Don't get me wrong. I use AI a lot and it's powerful, but I don't use it in the way that most people use it. But that idea of replacing yourself, I'll just get AI to write for me. Why would I go and waste time, on Gayle's retreat, or why would I waste time on her course when I can just tell AI, write me a soulful story about myself? It doesn't work that way. And in fact, the more you do that, the more you lose a part of yourself. And the studies that are coming out now are showing that you are actually losing part of yourself at a massively accelerated rate that they never anticipated possible.
Yeah.
So this is why this kind of work is so important. And I really feel like the work that you're doing too in the retreat setting is something that we're going to see a massive upswing in, because the more this goes way back. There was a book written back in the 80s called Megatrends by John Naisbitt. And he talked about one of the trends was high tech, high touch, that the more technology, this is in the 80s, the more technology invades our lives, the more we'll crave that human touch. And I think that is this, you just can't duplicate what you can get in a face-to-face retreat setting. That you just can't do it on screen. You can't do it through an e-course. You certainly can't do it in isolation. So I applaud you for doing that kind of work. And you know what? That work's a lot harder to do. So I applaud Gayle, because it's a lot harder to organize. It's a lot harder to pull together, but it's done from your truth, obviously, and from your desire to truly serve people, as opposed to just trying to throw something out there that people might gobble up. So I love that. And I just wanted to, I don't think of that as a commercial, but just as a, more validation for the importance of learning your own storytelling technique, telling your own story, not getting AI to write it for you. Sure, get AI to polish it up, clean up your grammar maybe, but you've got to learn to do this work yourself first. And the same with the retreat that Gayle's doing, is you've got to do that inner work. No AI is going to do that inner work that needs to be done.
Yeah, it's thank you for bringing that up, Mark. And whether it's AI or anything else, it's energy, and the energy matters. And so if you're prompting AI from your survival patterns and your default energy, that's what AI is going to spit back at you. And so the work really is the inner work to move into that empowered energy.
Yes.
And sure, who doesn't use AI at this point? I mean, maybe there's some people, but I was reluctant to use AI, but I use AI now too. But it's like you said, it's maybe not in the way that a lot of people are using it right now.
Use it in a conscious way.
Yeah.
And that's what's so important. So the work and then that can really accelerate learning and consciousness if you blend it in with the type of work that you're doing, Gayle, and use that to accelerate, your reasoning ability, your ability to expose truths and things. Then it can become a powerful tool, but certainly not. And I just say that because I'm just so sick of being bombarded every day. You jump online and it's AI this, AI that's going to solve, every problem. Go to Facebook and you can scroll through 100 of them in about 10 seconds. And to me, it's just junk. It's junk mail, because it's not getting to the truth. So I love the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Me too. Embrace your story, everyone. Embrace it. And I like how you talk about, you've overcome something in your life and use that for good to help other people, and also heal yourself at the same time.
Yes. Share your truth, share your story. And that kind of brings us full circle back to the topic of, storytelling with soul. And you know what? It can feel scary. Being vulnerable can be frightening, and you get a lump in your throat. And I was at a quick story. I was, my son just got married, and I was at the wedding, obviously, and gave a speech, and, cried during the speech. And that vulnerability is so important, because it's what really connects with the person you're speaking with, and the audience as well that you're speaking to, perhaps. So really, really important to bring your soul, to put it all out there on the line, and watch what happens when you do. It's exciting. It's not the T-Rex ain't gonna eat you.
Yeah. And lastly, I'm just going to flash up sort of a shameless plug for our workshop. Mark, do you want to speak to that real quick? We'll flash that across the bottom. By the way, everybody, I'm going to put all the links. They'll be promoted. So you'll have Gayle's links. Not if you're missing the live and you're hearing this like on a podcast or something, we'll make sure that those all get added in wherever we're.
So about once a month or so, I think the next one is July 14th. We do a free 5-day workshop. And what this workshop is all about is the bare bones truth of what it takes to build a business, a coaching business. So basically, you're going to hear everything you don't hear everywhere else. So we cut through the crap. And if you want crap, go to Facebook and you'll have, buckets full of it. Go ahead and scan it, and then come to our workshop and get the real truth, warts and all. And that's kind of our purpose is we kind of take that Susan powder, if you remember that from back in the Jaimie, you remember those, what was the protein power plant or something? Yeah, stop the insanity. So that's more and more our mission and our purpose is to stop the insanity, the get rich quick insanity, the idea that life and purpose and joy is all about making money as quickly as you can and ripping off as many people as possible, which all of the big guys are doing, or that, you know, the latest, greatest, shiny tactic is going to be the one that gets you rich and has you sipping rum from a coconut on a beach somewhere, and it's all bull. And sorry to say that. Sorry to steal the thunder of all those guys, and sorry to be a party pooper because we're all being lulled into that. But that's what the 5-day workshop is, the real truth, what it's all about and what it takes to make it happen, what it takes to do what Gayle's doing and to speak your truth and to live your mission and your purpose and your passion. So we'd love to see you there. We'd love to serve you in that way.
Yeah. So we will wrap on that. If anybody has anything else they want to say, I don't want to cut anybody off, but we can wrap it up, I guess. And yeah, Gayle, thank you so much for being our guest.
Thank you, Gayle.
Thank you
for having live,
me.
as we always point out too, this live, you know, is going to circulate around. Lives go like live, and then they go recorded. And so they're there. So if you see this, continue the conversation because, you know, it's not one and done. We appreciate the fact that everybody's on different time clocks and perhaps in different parts of the world. But please leave your comments, start a chat. We're all three of us will be watching for any comments and be happy to jump in and participate. See somebody joining us from the beautiful sunny beaches of Spain. I love that. I just watched a cooking show on Spain last night. One of my favorite places to go. So thanks, Coach Ben.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Yeah,
thank you, Coach Ben.
So cool.
Yeah. All right. Oh, we've got thank you very much. Showing love. We appreciate that very much. And thank you all for joining us. And we'll wrap it here. So yeah, have a good afternoon.